Step aside Calgary and step aside Philadelphia, because we have ourselves a brand new conversation that has emerged when it comes to one of the top NHL point scorers of 2021-2022. Let's talk today about Johnny Gaudreau and his entire contract situation, because even though it's been pretty heavily documented that the Calgary Flames are trying to re-sign this player, long story short, there are some other discussions to be having just in case the Flames end up not doing so. So, let's go over Johnny Gaudreau, his entire profile, the contract situation, and where exactly he could go for 22-23, assuming he does not re-sign with the Flames. Johnny Gaudreau is 28 years old, 5'9", 165. He's always been a pretty small guy relative to other NHL players. He's a left-handed shot that was making $6.75 million a season since 2016-17. That contract had just expired, and now, as a player whose contract is expiring as a UFA, there are many discussions to be having about where he could go next. The reason being is that the Calgary Flames forward is an absolutely phenomenal hockey player. He had 115 points in 82 games this season, 40 goals, 75 assists. It's actually kind of crazy how he bounced back from two pretty down years in 2021 and 2020. Last year, he had 49 points in 56 games, and okay, I mean, he's under a point per game, that's pretty good. The year before that, though, 58 points in 70 games played, so a little bit worse. But he had 99 points in 82 games in 2019, and that was kind of seen as the benchmark of future success for Johnny Gaudreau as to what he would be able to do, considering he's only 28 years old right now, and he was, 25 back when he had that season. This season, of course, he was one of the top point producers in the entire gosh darn league. 115 points is astounding. He was over a point per game as well for the Calgary Flames against the Dallas Stars and against the Edmonton Oilers. But with Gaudreau's contract expired, the Calgary Flames are not going to have themselves an easy time re-signing a player that could honestly demand the moon and back because he's worth it and he's only 28. Which is why we have this conversation right here. Pierre LeBrun on TSN said that if Johnny Gaudreau does hit the free agency market, look out for the New Jersey Devils to pursue him, and names like the Kraken being a wildcard team. They're expected to be aggressive in the UFA market this offseason. Pierre LeBrun also reminds everyone that yes, the Devils have a lot of cap space with Subban coming out the books this offseason, but Jack Hughes' new deal goes on the books and they need to sign Jesper Bratt. And so I wanted to make this video talking about both the Devils and the Kraken because these are two teams that open the door to a very interesting Johnny Gaudreau conversation. We can also talk about the Philadelphia Flyers because they're a team that's been heavily rumored to being involved in Johnny Gaudreau as well, mostly because Johnny Gaudreau, even though he grew up in New Jersey, was a big Flyers fan growing up, and therefore there's the entire home team connection there, etc., etc. We've made videos talking about Gaudreau and the Flyers in the past, so go ahead and check out those if you had not seen them already. But when it comes to this New Jersey thing, it's not actually the most new idea out there either. As we said, Johnny Gaudreau is indeed from New Jersey, and if we go over onto NJ.com, we have ourselves an article published here on June 8th by Ryan Novozinski, talking about how New Jersey native Johnny Gaudreau to the Devils is the most realistic option, according to an NHL insider. Now, the NHL insider they're talking about is actually not Pierre LeBrun, it's Hailey Salvian of The Athletic. The article opens up by talking about how the Devils should be going out there looking for Johnny Gaudreau because Tom Fitzgerald has been very adamant about wanting top-end talent for this team. Johnny Gaudreau, a Salem County native and six-time NHL All-Star with the Flames, is set to be a UFA, and he scored 115 points. But would he consider joining a New Jersey team that went 27, 46, and 9 last year? Hailey Salvian of The Athletic does think so. New Jersey might be the most realistic option here, outside of an extension in Calgary, or at the very least the most seamless fit. They're an East Coast team with cap space, a talented young roster, a future star at center, and the desire to get better now. The Devils have about $25 million in cap space and a lack of expensive players to re-sign, as well as assets on their roster. We had already talked at length about how the Devils are apparently interested in moving the second overall pick for another roster player that can help them out. Let's say, for the sake of making things hypothetically crazy, the Devils go out there and they sign Johnny Gaudreau, they give him a boatload of money, they don't care how much that money is because they got the cap space, and then they trade for JT Miller on top of that. Let's say they trade for a Fiala on top of that. For JT Miller, they convince the Canucks to retain 50%, they trade away some prospects and draft picks, etc., etc. For Kevin Fiala, maybe it's the same, but then they re-sign Fiala because he's an RFA. Imagine adding Johnny Gaudreau and one of Miller or Fiala in the same offseason just because you can. The New Jersey Devils have already been in this position where they honestly can get better. Like, this is around the time in 2022, 2023, 2024-ish when I feel like they should be able to start making that hump into entering wild card territory. This should be a wild card team with the emergence of Jack Hughes, assuming he stays healthy, giving Luke Hughes some time to marinate in the NCAA, graduating Alexander Holtz from the AHL to the NHL. There are a lot of good, young, talented pieces on this Devils team, and if you guys are already in the position to be pushing towards maybe being a wildcard team next year, adding a Johnny Gaudreau, a legit 100-point player, is going to help you out tenfold, and you guys are going to be able to afford that. So there's a fit here for sure. Obviously, the Philadelphia Flyers being involved in this is only because Johnny Gaudreau was a big fan of the Flyers, but at the same time, you can look at the Flyers and the Devils and say that the Devils probably do have a lot more to look forward to in the short-term and long-term future, potentially. Philadelphia is just such a weird team based off of how they're run that it's kind of tough to believe in and be on board with what they're doing. At least that's how it feels to me at the very moment I'm talking about this on the microphone. We also have a conversation about the Seattle Kraken. Now, the Kraken, as Pierre LeBrun highlighted, could just be a wild card team. Not necessarily a frontrunner, but a team that could be sneaky in the background of this entire discussion here. The Kraken don't have too much to go out there and look forward to when it comes to their immediate short-term success, so you gotta start stocking up on guys that can probably market your team a little bit better. The Kraken have about $22 million in cap space, and they have a boatload of draft picks in the upcoming 2022 draft, 2023, and 2024. Plus the abundance of RFAs that you're gonna have to re-sign that aren't really gonna cost too much. I don't think Morgan Geekie and Cole Lind and Donato are going to demand too much money, so you're likely going to have the cap space necessary to make a big free agency splash. But at the end of the day, this is a team that does need a little bit more meat on the bone, I feel, when it comes to their immediate on-ice impact. They've got some good prospects. I like Matty Beniers. I like Ryker Evans. I like some of the other guys they took in 2021. But this year, you're going to start really building that prospect pool in this year's draft with all of those picks. And so if you give it a timeline of, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years for a lot of these guys drafted in 2021 to make the team and eventually make an impact, Johnny Gaudreau is still gonna be kind of there and probably still effective. I mean, he'll be in his early 30s, so he won't be maybe at his absolute peak. I don't know if he's gonna get 115 points playing for the Kraken, but still, Johnny Gaudreau has been getting better with age, so who knows how long that's gonna go for until he starts slowing down. Either way, though, the Kraken are probably going to go out there and spend some extra money in free agency just so they can give their fans a marketable product on the ice. Pierre LeBrun said that they're going to be aggressive in free agency. So if a guy like Johnny Gaudreau decides to sign with Seattle, it's not going to be because, he believes in Jared McCann more than he believes in Jack Hughes, and he believes in the Kraken making the playoffs before the Devils do. It's going to be because of money. It's going to be because this team is saying, screw it, here's $10.5 million by 7 years, and you're going to take this money laughing all the way to the bank, playing on a West Coast team in Seattle against your Calgary Flames, night in, night out, because they're both Pacific Division rivals, and we just love taking old Calgary Flames because we did that in Giordano, right? It's a very interesting conversation to have. Obviously, it's not one that fans would immediately flock to unless you're a Seattle Kraken fan looking for your team to get exponentially better within the next few months. But either way, talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about the Calgary Flames and their contract negotiations with Johnny Gaudreau. It has been heavily documented that they want to keep this guy around. This is what Brad Treliving said about Johnny. He is a Calgary Flame, and we want to make him a Calgary Flame for a long time, so there's that 8-year contract bridge that they're allowed to go out there and cross, except by the time he hits UFA status on July 1st, that will no longer be available. He will only be able to sign for 7 years no matter the team, so there's a short ticking time bomb, I guess, that exists in this situation. But if you assume he actually does hit free agency, then let me know your thoughts about the Devils and the Kraken, whether or not these would be suitors for Johnny Gaudreau and his services. If you're a Flyers fan, then hey, tell me in the comments as well, what are your opinions about your team and Johnny Gaudreau? For me personally, I do think that New Jersey would be the best fit. He could get a combination of money and fantastic teammates to play with. For Philadelphia, there's a hometown connection there, but I don't really think that's strong enough to supersede the idea of playing with Jack freaking Hughes, as well as who would be the second overall pick in this year's draft, or whoever that pick is traded for, like a Miller or a Fiala. And for Seattle, I think they could just give him the bag, which definitely does sound attractive in its own right. It's just, who knows if Johnny Gaudreau would want to do that. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think? I hope you enjoyed this pretty sure 99, and bye.